Alrighty, welcome everybody. There are still a few seats left here up the front. Don't be shy. Come and rest your weary feet. Grab your last few nibbles and drink, and we're going to get into this evening. As always, thank you all so much for coming along and giving up your time. I know we're getting crazy close to Christmas, which means it's crazy times. Everyone's trying to cram everything in these last few weeks. So I appreciate you guys coming along to learn about how you can get involved in one of the most magnificent projects to hit the East Coast for the next several years and beyond. Very, very exciting project that we're going to run you through tonight. We actually have 50 plus people joining us from all around Australia actually live. So this is actually being live streamed. So lots of buyers at home as well. So that's putting probably about 150 plus people watching this event right now as well. So thank you all so much for coming along. But look out for those cameras if you want to be famous. But tonight we're going to go for 45 odd minutes, so please get comfortable. Bathrooms are just here on your right. But it's a night to learn about the Landmark by R&W Group here at Mermaid Beach. My name is Brennan Latimer. I'm one of the licensees and directors of the R&W Plus group. And we have the privilege of working closely with the R&W Group, with our sales partners and direct clients, to involve people in arguably one of the most exciting projects to hit the Gold Coast for several years to come. So tonight we're going to hear from my team, my business partner Owen Moore, who's going to run you through the more details of the project in Gold Coast. And then we're joined from Peter from R&W Group, who's 20 plus years member of the group. So a wealth of knowledge about who and how they do things and the brand and the passion that comes with their developments as well and what makes this a cut above everything else that we're seeing in the market. Now to kick us off, I always like to do a bit of a macro approach to the market so we can see what's really going on a holistic scale here in Australia for understanding the pressures on the property market. And what's really interesting to see, you can see there Australia at the top of that bar chart there for population growth across the rest of some of the largest cities in the world, absolutely steamrolling the rest and leading the way with the amount of population growth into this country. So Australia is an absolute beast. More people bolstering the economy, pressure on real estate, ergo we've seen pressure on prices, or prices remain buoyant during one of the most drastic interest rate increase periods. And now we're starting to see some rental pressure substantially as well. And we don't know if we've really seen the worst of that yet to come. So you can see here some of the numbers from CBRE. North of 1.1 million people coming to Australia to call it home across 23, 24, 25. So a really substantial amount of people, around 400,000 people per annum. Now, when you look at the numbers of what that truly means for the impact on the property market, it is absolutely staggering. Just over 2 people per household is pretty typical across most of our capitals. When you look at the numbers there, that's 450,000 dwellings to cater for that many people. Across our 5 main cities, that's nearly 100,000 new properties, be it houses or apartments, needing to be built to cater for that many people coming to the country. Raise your hand if you feel that's being met over the last few years. There's no hands up for those of you who don't want to look around. No hands up. And that is part of the problem that we're seeing in the market, which has kept those prices buoyant, kept those rentals growing, and why we still see such longevity in the market here as a whole. So I always like to start with that to give people a bit of an understanding of really where Australia sits. Now, of course, the market did have some shocks to it with interest rate movement over the last few years. Everyone will remember all we heard about constantly was interest rates coming up. The end of the world, interest rates, price growth, cliff, whatever it was. Whatever the tabloids wanted to put out, whatever was going to catch your attention, and it caught our attention, right? So, interestingly enough, I think you can all agree that the tune has changed. We're not really hearing much about interest rates, other than interest rates possibly going down pretty soon. What we have heard about, more so in the last year or so, is rental issues and supply shortages. And that's a lot about what we'll talk about tonight. Now, interest rate environment, I think we can all agree, most of the top economists are really pegging early to mid 2025 to see the commencement of some rate drops. The intensity of those rate drops, always unknown, obviously, but they think with inflation getting under control and wanting to bolster the market in the right direction, we'll see some interest rate drops coming. And that's where looking at off-the-plan real estate is quite poignant. So the 6.5 interest rate on an interest-only standard loan that you'll get today, in the environment settling a property like Landmark in early 2026, let's say, 27, sorry, you might be getting a 5.5% sort of interest rate as well. So there's a lot of people doing a strategy of off the plan to hedge their bets on that lowering interest rate environment as well, which will make that rental property that you own more affordable, bolster that cash flow for the property and do better by your portfolio. So on the subject of Southeast Queensland, I'm sure all locals here in the room, you've all got family and friends who have moved nearby in the last few years, I'm sure. People flooding out of Sydney, people flooding out of Melbourne and heading to the sunny coast, right? Or the Gold Coast or even up to Brisbane. So the Southeast Queensland market has experienced an enormous amount of pressure into it. People are moving here because of that lifestyle offering and the relative affordability compared to marketplaces like Sydney. If you're a small family in Sydney, you've got $1 million to spend, the conversation around the dinner table of where and what to do has really started to become quite clear about making a move across borders up into the north. You can imagine that conversation happening. I'm sure we've all had it in our lifetime, and that's the driving force of people moving up into this market. Not only that, you've got a lot of people with a lot of money wanting some lifestyle-oriented properties as well. That's seen a lot of push and drive and demand into this marketplace as well. So you can see there, compared to the other states, in terms of interstate net migration, Southeast Queensland market absolutely smashing it compared to the other states. And of course, we've got, sorry, jumping around here, the Olympics, which is always very topical. People always say to me, Brendan, what does that mean? The Olympics, great. It's happening in 2032. A couple of athletes come in. They get on the job in the Olympic Village and head on out. Maybe some don't get back on the plane. We don't know. Some funny things can happen. But the Olympics is really interesting. And what I love to look at is, you take a look at some of these names. Tokyo, Paris, next is LA, and then we've got Brisbane. So we're rubbing shoulders with some of the big names out there around the world. And what that means to me is eyeballs. That's eyeballs on Australia. That's eyeballs on our East Coast, and namely this pocket around the Gold Coast and Brisbane. So over $7 billion Queensland state government budget put towards it, over 3 billion global eyes watching that event. Now, the indirect influence on that market is hard to quantify, but you can imagine what that does in terms of a little bit of putting it on the map. You know, no longer is it really about just Sydney and Melbourne in an international scale. That Brisbane, that Gold Coast, it helps it really elevate into a position of popularity. Now, this case study is very interesting. You know, I like to think that we might not see the exact same circumstances happen in this area, what we did in Sydney, but even if we see half of it, you can really see the writing on the wall for increased property growth in this marketplace. So what was really interesting, 5 years before the announcement of the Olympics, 5% average annual growth rate. The Games announced in 1993. 5 years after the Games announcement in the lead up to the Games, 9.5% average annual growth. Games held in 2000, and the 5 years after those games was a 12.5% average annual growth rate after there as well. Now, can you attribute that to some other factors? Probably, of course, but it is all a combination of things, and that combination is what we are going to be seeing in this marketplace in conjunction with other things. Not just the Olympics, improving economy, diversifying economy. We've got demand and supply metrics in favour of property investors at the moment, and prices still looking pretty good. So it's always interesting to see and learn and understand historically what can happen from the Olympics. Now, it's not centralised only on Brisbane, which is a great point that a lot of people overlook as well. We've got 14 disciplines actually taking place in and around the Gold Coast across 6 venues as well. So it's not all just centralised on Brisbane. There's a bit happening up in the Sunshine Coast as well. And a lot of eyeballs are going to be here in the Gold Coast as well. And finally, before I get off and get Owen up here, I am based in Sydney, ladies and gentlemen. Don't hate me for it. There's a few people always like, what are you doing? Are you moving up here? What's happening? Lots of people are doing it. I actually have a good friend who moved up here, bought off in a street adjacent to Hedges Avenue, bought a house. It's like a knockdown for $2 million. He's building like a $1.8 million home on it. And that seems to be the pretty kind of common thing happening around here at the moment. So yeah, it's great to see, but I lost my friend. But anyway, Australian house prices record smashed with 60 million with a $200 million sale recently. Aussie John's home selling there on Sydney Harbour. So you can see what can happen in a mature marketplace when that coastal real estate market can pop. And it's really just good to see that there is that amount of money looking at good quality real estate in the marketplace as well. Another one more recently in Bondi Beach, we're just off Campbell Parade there, a new development. We actually had a $22 million sale on a 186 square metre internal apartment. So I think that we were up at 100, what was it, dollar per square metre? Yeah, there you go. So some serious money being spent on good quality location real estate. So where the good quality calls, there's money in the marketplace spending on that right real estate, and that coastal market, when it gets to that level of maturity, can get pretty crazy. So I always love to show this stuff, because when I come to Brisbane, the Gold Coast, and see the real estate, the quality and what you're getting, the value, absolutely staggering to me, and it still shows such value opportunity. But that's it for me tonight. I'm going to hand over to Owen Moore, my business partner, who's going to run you through. He's our Gold Coast local, so he's got all the war stories and knows the ins and outs of where and what to do here. So I'll hand over to Owen to run you through a bit more detail about the Gold Coast and the landmark.
Thank you, Brennos. We'll get him to move here one day, I reckon. Keep working on him tonight. If you grab him after the event, tell him how good the lifestyle is. But what's great about sort of, some of the properties he's mentioned there on screen is, literally we were in Sydney, I think now 2 weeks ago, and we were able to sort of chat with the gentleman who conducted that sale there. And what was interesting to find out is the buyer of that $118,000 a square metre apartment in Bondi is actually from the Gold Coast. So it's amazing the wealth effect that is happening now on the Gold Coast in relation to sort of, sits on the Australian market. And a real little fun fact is he actually lives in Mermaid Beach as well. So it's sort of, interesting sort of, when you look at the marketplace and you have these conversations and you look at sort of, how things are shifting and changing. And like Brendan said, sort of I grew up on the Gold Coast, so I've seen it transform a lot over the last sort of 2-3 decades. And, I think the future of the Gold Coast is really only just beginning. It is getting quite special as a location. And I guess that for me today was sort of, why I wanted to sort of, discuss, some of the real major key factors that is changing the transformation of the Gold Coast. I think, we've got, a number of people we work with from Sydney and Melbourne. And what's interesting about, the Gold Coast is, we love to bring them up here, usually during sort of the colder winter months, because Gold Coast has 300 sunny days a year. So they come up here, they always go, wow, it's amazing. I've got off the plane. The Gold Coast Airport has changed, though. You don't get out and have to walk the tarmac every time. They now have the bridge that you can go across with the upgrade, which has been good. I think also the beaches, I won't touch on it too much. We all sort of understand how special they are. Really the food and entertainment precinct of the Gold Coast, I have seen the most growth in that space. I think culturally, our dining offerings, have diversified so much now. They rival Brisbane, and I have to say they even rival some Sydney, and I don't know if there's anyone in Melbourne in the room or on the stream. I know they'll get offended by that, but there is some amazing restaurateurs who have chosen to actually move from those southern states to southeast Queensland and choose locations like the Gold Coast to open up their restaurants. That's kind of where the big one for me is where the population is going. We are seeing the Gold Coast now, pretty close to 700,000 residents. We will be well over 1 million residents in the next decade. That's just transformational. And so how that affects the Gold Coast is different to a lot of other major cities, because the Gold Coast is really a north-south city. So it runs basically along the coastline. So you want to basically get within sort of the Nerang River and the beaches. And the real estate in between those two, with the migration coming, is just going to be further and further in demand. I'm going to talk more about that this evening. And this has come to they're doing from a transportation side. They're really investing in the future. You are seeing it with the new trams that are extending all the way to the airport. They'll take you out to Griffith University, where you can get the interchange and then go all the way up to Brisbane. So we are a fully connected city now, from the Gold Coast through to Brisbane in that sense. And so really then pricing, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, but the Gold Coast is just pipped. It is now the second highest value property market in comparison to Sydney. So it is the most valuable property market behind Sydney in Australia. And you can see why with some of these imageries on screen. But that's where the future of the Gold Coast, people say to me a lot of the time, what is the industry? Where is the CBD of the Gold Coast? And that's all changed, especially post-COVID and the lockdowns. People here can sort of live, they can work, they can play from wherever they want. And I really sort of, I was actually chatting to George and Peter, the developers at Anico, about the CBDs of the Gold Coast. And I was, there's a corporate tower in Bundall, there's Surfers Paradise. We actually think, they've got 11,000 square metres of office space they're keeping in the landmark. That will be the new Southern Gold Coast CBD, which is an exciting opportunity as well. But if you look at that, it's the reason why, Mermaid Beach, average new apartment price, $1.75 million there. Rentals, a 2-bedroom in Mermaid Beach is now renting on average for $1,100 a week, and a 3-bedroom over $1,500 a week. Put those prices into consideration then, with the opportunity here at the Landmark. And, we are the first to really see this. We've done an event in Sydney 2 weeks ago. This is, the second event. We're in Melbourne tomorrow night. We've got people on the live stream here. And it is amazing to offer this when the display on site is only under construction right now. I don't think it's going to be complete till maybe, and Peter will give you more details, but I don't think it'll be complete till after Easter. So to see this evening is very special, and we're sort of very privileged to be a part of this amazing project and sort of the future that they're showcasing. But that's kind of where, looking at the Gold Coast, that big one, now the median property price, 1.17 million, just behind Sydney's 1.7 million. And it really shows the value of the Gold Coast, and especially the Mermaid Beach pocket, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. You might not be able to see on there, but, in that, you have, well-known people, Bob L, Harry Triggenboff, Clive Palmer, and they're all looking at sort of those beachfront real estate in that key location. So Mermaid Beach, it's commonly known as Queensland's most expensive suburb. It just trades between sort of Sunshine Beach and Noosa and, Hedges Avenue. And it really depends on, which month who pops off a big sale between those two. Now, Mermaid Beach, Hedges Avenue was always kind of known as Millionaires Row for me growing up. I think it's more likely Billionaires Row now, given the type of clientele that are living on the beachfront there. And, that's what's so special about this opportunity. You look at that median property price growth there, and you can kind of see the value of buying into that suburb, at an entry price of, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. It's just amazing to sort of have a piece of real estate long term in such an amazing location. But the big one, sort of looking at the data of how it's performed the last couple of decades, you've always had typically close to that 1,000 properties on the market in the general real estate second-hand market. But have a look at where it is right now. Sort of 23, 22, 2024, it's at its lowest point ever. It's under 500 properties for sale. So it's less than half, where the demand, as Brennan was saying, for interstate people like his friend who's bought a property and moved up here is through the roof, but the availability of secondhand real estate is so low. And that's where new property is such an amazing opportunity given that time period. So what we're talking about tonight is the Landmark here. You can see where it is positioned. We are literally at the Sofitel just over here. You can kind of see us. You've got Pacific Fair Shopping Centre, the casino, And you're literally 100 metres from Pacific Fair, 200 metres to the casino, and about 250 metres from Hedges Avenue there. And what's so amazing and special about this is, you can kind of understand, the Gold Coast and that stretch between the river and the ocean, and why it's such an amazing opportunity. But Mermaid Beach is special because all beyond here in this street down is an 8-story height limit. So that is where the value is in this suburb, because there's not future supply coming through like you've got up Surfers Paradise, and this is what presents the future long-term value of such an amazing project. And what is really special is, and I'll go back and actually tell the story behind the hotel that is going in as well. So one of these 5 hoteliers, and Peter and George have actually signed the deal, but they've also signed an NDA, so they won't tell us who it is. But I know it's one of these 5. So if anyone can go and twist Peter's arm tonight and find out who it is, they're going to be opening one of the first 6-star hotels on the Gold Coast. Now, they've got a formula that they've looked at hotels around the world. And for them, their formula, they've looked in Melbourne, they've looked in Sydney, they've looked in Brisbane. They have never been able to find a location that works. However, where the landmark is, just remember, 100 metres and you're walking to Louis Vuitton, Hermes, high-end fashion stores. 200 metres, you're in the high rollers room at the casino. And then another 250, 300 metres, you're on Hedges Avenue, Queensland's most prestigious street. They said this is the only location in Australia that we've seen that fits our global formula. And what's amazing about that is Peter and George were able to do the deal, and they'll be putting in Tower 4 a 6-star resort, which is just going to be a transformational offer to the residents of the Gold Coast, something that is really special. And if you look at those names, I don't know which one it is yet, but apparently come Easter time when the display opens, they're going to make the announcement, which is really special for everybody. So then looking at where Landmark is in Mermaid Beach, I love looking at this sort of walk score as it lays out 5, 10, 20 minutes. I think you can just see how many great offerings there are here. And for all the Gold Coasters in the room, I think we may have all experienced, the new Oxley precinct in Nobby's Beach. I think that's a phenomenal location. A good friend of mine actually just opened the restaurant there, Lars. He was the head chef at a top restaurant in Brisbane, SK's. So he worked there for over a decade, and he literally moved from there last year and opened up what I consider now in Mermaid Beach, one of the best restaurants on the Gold Coast. So to have the calibre of those types of people coming into this precinct is just transformational and truly special. And what he told me, I spoke to him this week. He said, Owen, I hear you're doing something in Mermaid Beach on, this week. He's like, come in for dinner after. I'm like, mate, I can't. I've got too much on. But he's like, I've had my literally best month I've had since opening. He goes, I can't believe the clientele that are coming in. So, it's a real testament to the suburb of, what he's seen come through. And I think this is that transformation of the Gold Coast and why that wealth effect is happening here. Just with what's on offer is, a lifestyle that is unrepeatable, whether it's sort of, food, dining, entertainment, you literally have everything on offer that you'd expect, at any sort of, international sort of travel destination. With Pacific Fair as well, that is sort of, now considered one of the best shopping precincts in Australia. And I think sort of these views is sort of one thing I really wanted to touch on, because it just shows, that 8-story height limit all along Mermaid Beach there. And this is your views from level 35 at the landmark. And so you can see those panoramic views all the way across, which is just truly special. So when it comes to an eco group, we're going to get Peter on stage in a minute or two. But what's so special about them than any other developer in the Gold Coast, Queensland, let alone Australia, is as a builder developer, they are able to do stuff that no one else is able to. And I think when they acquired this site and they put it together, they looked at nationally and internationally some of the best mixed-use precincts and projects. And, they've got such a strong track record. They've built for Bentley Automotive. They built the dealership over in Southport. They still retain the ownership of it. They've done so many amazing projects. And I'll let Peter tell you more, but as that builder-developer relationship, they've literally commenced works on site. They'll be digging the basement, and I think it's such a amazing opportunity for us all to be involved, tonight in such a special project before it goes to the wider market in Easter time. So without further ado, let's bring Peter on stage and he can take us through the project.
Good evening. There's a few familiar faces here, which is lovely to see. A little bit about Anico, I suppose, is something I should talk about. I've had the privilege of working with George Mastrokostas over the last 22 years, and we've developed a lot of properties throughout southeast Queensland, and we continue to do so, obviously. The latest projects that we've just done is 630 apartments and townhouses on Hope Island. We've transformed that suburb, and I'm happy to say that buyers that bought in our 6 towers out there have all had very, very, very good capital gains, as they did with our townhouses. And as Owen touched on, probably one of the greatest things about Anico is the fact that we are the builder. We're the builder, we're the developer, we're also the property manager. So we will manage those buildings once they're complete. So our team goes in there, runs that. If there's a problem with that building, for example, a roller door or a pool pump or something's not working, our ladies that run those buildings aren't wandering around, who do we call it Hutchison's, who do we call it Balderstones, who do we call wherever. Simply call up Nathan, head of our construction, and say, Nathan, something's not working, and one of the boys come over and fix it because we built it. So it works really, really well. The other thing we do really well is design, and we'll touch on that shortly, but it's about making sure that you're not wasting precious resources on building corridors in apartments, etc., that people end up paying for them, and there's really no use. They don't actually increase the size of the usable space in the apartment. So I think with the landmark, we've done a pretty good job with that, and I think it's being proven in the sales that we've been doing. A little bit about George. He apologises for not being here tonight. He's actually the Greek consulate for Queensland. He's got the Greek ambassador here in Queensland, and he just can't, he couldn't change the date. He was sincerely apologetic, and obviously being Gold Coast people, he wanted to be here tonight, but please accept his apologies. Okay, that's just a little image of Tower 1 that you're going to see if you were sort of flying past it like you were Superman. And there's an image of how those towers will look from the beach. There's a 4th tower behind that big one, which you can't see, but there'll be 4 towers in all. There'll be a total of around about 1,000 apartments and hotel rooms in here. So Tower 1 that we're talking about tonight is a 36-level tower. It's got 240 apartments in it, a range of 2 and 3 bedrooms. And what we intend to do is build, which is this tower here, this Tower 1. We intend to start construction in March of next year. That's when our construction team come off Athena Keys at Hope Island. Remember, we are the builder. We sell, build, sell, build, sell, build. We have to bring that construction team over in March and keep them going. So you don't have to worry about the fact that it won't get built. We've got a 100% success rate on every project we've taken to market. Our next one we're doing is under construction at Chevron Island in Wimala Street. If you'd like to drive past and have a look at that, that's a 21-storey project. So we will get this one underway in March. We'll build 4 levels of basement under both of those towers. Then we'll come up out of the ground and we'll do 6 levels of above ground car parking. And we wrap that with office space. As Owen alluded to earlier on, it might have been Brennan, we're putting 11,000 metres of office space in there. So it's the 2nd biggest office park on the Gold Coast. Only 50 Cavill Avenue is bigger. So not just the tourist aspect that we're going to have with this hotel, we're going to have a vibrant office community there as well. And on the ground level, George has been scouting the world, and he's going to put in hatted fine dining, casual dining restaurants all along the waterfront there. So it'll be really, really nice dining precinct that you'll be able to overlook the water there. So that'll be the other element. We're keeping all that. We're not selling it. We'll lease it, but we won't sell it. And we're also putting in as Owen said, I don't think there is a 6-star hotel, but anyway, let's call it a 5-star or 6 if you want, into the 4th tower. And that'll be a world-renowned branded hotel, something that the Gold Coast, we believe, really needs. And then we'll put branded residences into those as well. So the opportunity tonight is for Tower 1, and you've got the option to either live in that permanently, you can let that permanently, or you can put that in the holiday pool and holiday let it. Okay, so you can do whatever you like with that tower, that's entirely up to you. Tower 2 will be the same. We haven't decided completely what we're doing with Tower 3 yet, but I can tell you one thing, it'll be a lot more expensive. Okay, how am I doing there? Okay, what did I miss? Did I miss one? Yeah, that's just an up view shot, but anyway. So pretty typical of our design. We always do floor to ceiling glass. We always make sure that there's no drops off in the balcony when you walk off your living areas. Plasterboard ceilings. You'll have, stone bench tops, all air conditioned, everything, Miele appliances we're putting in, everything you could possibly want. I don't know what I've done there. There we go. Now, what have I done there? Where's the one? It's not showing the whole thing. But anyway, bit of a view of how it may look. So it'll be a beautiful project and be beautifully finished. That's a little bit of an image of how we anticipate the dining area to go. This is Pacific Fair over on this side of the water, and then there'll be all this fine dining underneath here. And we have had talks to Pacific Fair. Their intention on the other side is actually to create some fine dining or dining precincts on their side in the future as well. Most of those big shopping centres that were sold a few years ago, they come and they spend a lot of money, which they did. Then they subsequently put some more money into it, which will be the second phase we're talking about. And then eventually they sell them off to someone else who seems to do it again. But this whole area will almost become a little bit like a mini Darling Harbour or something. It'll be a really fantastic dining and eating precinct.
Sorry, is that bridge to Pack Bear?
Yes. Yeah, that bridge there is the bridge that's there now. Yep. So, just another image of how it will look from the outside. And let's move on to this one, because this is pretty good. So this is on level 6. That area there is 2.5 acres. Okay, so it's 2.5 acres, just over a hectare of podium. So this is Tower 1. We'll sit here on top of this. Tower 2, Tower 3, and then Tower 4. Every conceivable amenity that you need in a 5-star resort is there. I won't stand here and rattle them all off. They're all in the brochures, but there's everything you could possibly imagine. The 5-star hotel will also bring a 1,200 metre international spa with it as well. So it'll be the best spa on the Gold Coast, bar none. So yeah, it just goes on and on. As I said, you could stand here for 10 minutes and talk about all the stuff that we're going to put in there. I'll let you look at that at your desire. I touched before just on being efficient on floor plans. For example, as I said, a lot of apartments, I'll have hallways in there and things like that. You can't use them. So this is designed to be completely efficient, and we've come up with a product that's obviously being well received by the marketplace. I think we've been through the views, so I won't go on to that. Probably the final comment I'll just like to say is that we've been developing on the coast here for a long time. The opportunity to buy this, we couldn't resist it. George originally tried to buy this a few years ago, and some other people got hold of it. I think they were Chinese investors, and they couldn't make it work. So we come in and we bought it. We're just so excited. This is our Olympics. We need to have this whole project built and completed before the Olympics. The hotel has to be open by the end of 2030. We need to give it 12 months to settle down before the Olympics. The Olympics arrive in 2032. Our construction program will start in March of next year, and it'll be solid just 6 years non-stop to build all the towers. It's a really exciting opportunity. It's in Mermaid Beach. It's the equivalent of Toorak in Melbourne. It's the equivalent of Vaucluse in Sydney, and it's the equivalent of, I suppose, Tenerife in Brisbane. To be able to buy in a project like this, of this calibre, with this amenity next to I believe Australia's best shopping centre, next to our transport hub, with water behind it, beach to the east of it, it's just a remarkable opportunity. And I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never come across a project that ticks all these boxes. So please consider it, and if we can be of any further help, please ask. Thank you.
Look, thanks so much, Peter. I mean, I know sort of such a wealth of knowledge in the industry and sort of been a part of so many projects. So to hear it from him and, you know, obviously with this location, you know, it is something truly special. One thing I wanted to touch on, which Peter probably didn't touch on, is just the supply of the Gold Coast and definitely the supply of Mermaid Beach. We were looking at a recent Charter Keck Kramer report that looked at the supply coming in, and that is the lowest point it has been in the last couple of decades. And that's due to the nature of the challenges in the construction space. So for these guys, being that builder developer, they've already got their team ready to start and go on site, is just such an amazing opportunity to be a part of. But I also think, you know, looking at this location, like this is level 15. Like that's still an amazing view. And so I know this building here on Ventura Ave, that's an 8-story building, built and developed by good guys I went to school with actually, the Nicofrides boys. And you know, you look at the height of that and then where we are at level 15, and it just presents such an amazing opportunity. I mean, you go up to sort of level 20 and sort of where it sits from there. It is a remarkable project as you get up to level 25 and beyond. And I guess my big takeaway from all of that is, you know, everyone in this room tonight are some of the first people to see it. We did an internal friends and family staff launch. You know, Peter's done a friends and family launch as well. We've done one event in Sydney. We've had a number of expression of interest come in today and before the Melbourne event. We're actually close to 50% sold in Tower 1. So if anyone is interested this evening in finding out more, what's available, wanting to understand price points, grab, you know, Brennan, myself, Peter, you know, James, the Positive team, anyone in the room if they want to know how to get involved this evening or this week, because mark my words, you know, this project, I believe, Tower 1 is going to be sold out before the display suite opens in Easter next year. So it's perfect timing to look at this one. And I know we've got a lot of people, we've got about 50, 55, 60 zooming in tonight on the stream. So we're going to launch a poll in there, and I think they're going to put it in now. Put a comment in the chat if you want to find out more about this, and the team will reach out to you this evening. But on that note, I just want to leave you with, such a stunning project. Round of applause, everybody, and thanks for coming along.